Hello. So, as your request was to go through networks, I thought I'd start with satellite communication systems because it's quite interesting. So, you're going to understand how satellite communication works and basically sorry, should have put where they are used. Okay. So, we're going to understand to investigate basically trilateration and investigate satellite broadband connections. Now, let's take a look at some key terms first. So, one term is satellite. Basically, all this is an object in space that follows an orbital path around the Earth. Then the next one is GPS, which stands for Global Positioning System, and it allows satellites to determine the current location of basically your device. So say, for example, you're using Google Maps, it will determine your current location. Now, satellites. Firstly, let's look into satellites. Now, a satellite is just a machine that's placed in space to orbit in order to carry out specific tasks. Now, satellites orbit the Earth and they can be used for many jobs. So this can be communications, this is phone or internet. So because you can use satellite phones, like the military use satellite phones. Some people that may go on expeditions, such as maybe, in the Arctic or in jungles or somewhere, would use a phone that will connect to a satellite. And also the internet can also connect to a satellite as well. Television broadcasting, so for example, maybe your TV is provided by Movistar in the UK. Our satellite TV would be called Sky. Navigation using Google Maps, and mapping using Google Earth, Google Maps, and scientific research. Military and satellite can also send and receive signals using transponders. So looking on the images here, you can see some of the satellites, but look how many, and how they orbit the Earth. So this is what we're going to look into now. So how exactly do they orbit the Earth? Well, there's three ways. There's LEOs, MEOs, and GEOs. Okay, so satellites orbit the Earth on three different levels. So LEOs, these are low Earth orbit, and they are around 500 to 1,500 kilometers from the Earth. And for global coverage, we require between 40 to 80 satellites. Then there's MEOs, which are medium Earth orbit, and they orbit at 5,000 to 12,500 kilometers from the Earth, and we require around 8 to 20 satellites for global coverage. Then we've got GEOs, so these are geostationary Earth orbit, so they are at fixed points, and these are over 35,000 kilometers away from the Earth, and we need just 3 satellites. Okay, so there are, I don't know how many, if you've ever considered how many satellites there are, okay, but there are quite a lot of satellites up in space to give us what we need, so GPS, TV, mapping, all sorts of things. Now, so what we're going to look at is data transfer systems. Okay, so this is the satellite. So how the satellite will go, from outer space into the dish, into your home. Okay, so now satellite broadband is an option for people that live in rural areas if they do not have cables installed. Okay, so it depends where some people live, what countries they live in, and so on, and where they may live. Okay, so they may need an internet connection, and this will be done provided by satellites rather than cable, because the cables have not been laid, or maybe they can't be laid. So these areas simply could be rural, deserts, at sea, where you can't get any cables, and deprived areas. Okay, so they would require a satellite broadband connection. Now, the data transfer would require the geo belt. of the satellites. Okay, to provide these broadband connections. Now, the disadvantage is the geos are such a long way from the Earth, because if you remember on the previous slide, I said that they was over 35,000 kilometres away, that there's a delay in sending and receiving the signals, because obviously the signals are coming from such a long way away and then going a long way, that there is a delay. Now, this obviously is known as the latency, and it won't allow real-time apps such as games or live transmissions, simply because it's not possible. It's just not, it's not quick enough. So for real time and for live transmissions, you need a very fast link, and a satellite cannot provide that. So now, to get satellite broadband, there's two methods. One is the one-way satellite broadband. So this would use a PSTN, so a public switch telephone network connection, for the client to upload the data. And this means the uploading can be very slow. Then you've got your two-way broadband, and this allows the user to upload data directly to the satellite, but this would require more expensive hardware to actually handle this connection and allow this to take place. So overall, really, when it comes to satellite broadband, although it does sound really exciting, the bandwidth available for the end users is very low into, in place of common modern connections. Because obviously, if you think about it now, fiber optics become far more common, and it's very quick. There's no way a satellite can keep up with that. But, it's improving, and it may become a thing of the future, who knows? But at the moment, it's just not feasible. So, but still, satellite broadband obviously tends to be far more expensive and quite limited. Okay, so you would only have satellite broadband if you have no option, really. Now, but we do use satellites for radio and television broadcasting. Okay, so when broadcasting and TV radio transmissions can be done through cables, okay, radio waves or satellite. So radio is dependent on frequencies available, and obviously there's a limited number of channels. But cable broadcasts are limited to where the cables have been laid. So, like, for example, new housing developments may not have the cables. So there was a housing development that I lived in East London, a brand new development available for key workers such as teachers and the NHS and so on. And I wanted, rather than satellite TV, I wanted cable TV, because cable TV had so much more and you could do so much more. However, because my development was brand new, we didn't have cable TV available to us. So the company was called Virgin, and Virgin hadn't laid any cables for quite a number of years. So therefore, it simply wasn't available to me. And then when I moved to another development outside of London in Essex, it was already an existing building, but the flats were built on top of the existing building. And again, satellite TV was available. Sky put a dish there. However, Virgin, the other company, hadn't laid any cable. So again, cable TV was not available. So, but it seems that satellite TV always is. And the reason for that is because they have to lay the cable. So it means that they've got to dig up the ground, or they've got to send somebody out to actually put the cables in place, put them inside the walls or whatever. But with satellite, is all they have to do is simply go on the roof of the building and put a dish. And that one dish can be used by the whole building. So it's much easier. But satellite TV can offer far more channels, apparently, and able to broadcast over a larger number of frequencies using the microwaves. So, continuing, to view satellite TV, you need to use a set-top box and a satellite dish. Television companies send their TV signals from the Earth into space, and then the channels will be compressed and some encrypted. Obviously, there has to be encryption because people have to pay a subscription. But then obviously there's some other channels that you have to pay extra for, so they encrypt them. or maybe there's live sporting events that you have to pay for, so they would encrypt that until you've paid the subscription. Now, in terms of cable, I have seen set-top boxes that have been completely decrypted, but with satellite, never seen that, okay, which is really strange. So the end user's dish will receive the geo satellite signals, and the signal is passed to the dish through the cable onto the set-top box and onto your TV. Now, continuing, channels are encrypted, obviously, unless the viewer pays the subscription. But the great thing about satellite, okay, that is not available with cable is that many people living in urban areas can benefit from a satellite TV, as they will be available in rural areas, because you just need a dish to receive the signal. Okay, so it's so simple. And also, as the examples here, people camping and maybe living on boats can receive a satellite signal from anywhere that is available, okay, from wherever they are. With cable, that's not available. Obviously, you can't put a cable into a camper van, okay, because the cables, as I said, are underground. There's generally, like in the UK, there's the green boxes in the street. And obviously, how would that connect to cable TV? But as you can see, they've got a couple of satellites here, so they can receive satellite TV. And the same with the barge here. Obviously, there's absolutely no way cable would be available. And obviously, they wouldn't even be able to have, like these two wouldn't even be able to have a regular internet connection that you would receive from a cable. So they would probably have, they would have to have wireless connection. So you can buy dongles and you can buy the internet like boxes that you can carry around with you. But they can receive satellite TV as well. Okay. Now, let's move on to GPS, Global Positioning Systems. So GPS uses the LEO satellites, so the low Earth orbit satellites. There are 24 of these satellites on average that I think orbit the Earth, and they orbit the Earth twice a day. Okay, so maybe twice a day doesn't sound a lot, but you know, try and orbit a whole planet twice in one day. I mean, that's pretty impressive. So GPS receivers use satellites to calculate their current Earth location. So as you can see here, there's 3 different satellites, and they use the trilateration method, and then the user's location would be in the middle right here. So now, where these 3 satellites are used to determine the distance between a GPS receiver and a satellite, and it enables the exact location. So using maths, they can determine your exact location. So GPS is obviously part of our everyday lives more and more. I mean, I remember when, you know, TomToms sort of first came out, and not everybody had them, and they was quite expensive, really. But now you have GPS on your phone. It's on your phone right in front of you whenever you want to use it. So locating emergency services vehicles, so they dispatch to emergencies quickly. You know, these navigation systems, these satellite navigation systems, yes, these GPS systems can even like determine where traffic is. So I don't know if you've ever seen that on your phone at all, but they can tell you where the heavy traffic is and how to avoid it. And that's, you know, really, really, you know, it is needed for emergency vehicles. So like if an ambulance has got to get, you know, to a choking baby very quickly, they need the fastest way to get there. And also it's used for private taxis. So for example, they can calculate the fare as well. So Uber is very common in the UK. So, and also if you ever used Uber Eats here in Las Palmas, it is excellent because you can go on there and you can see where your delivery actually is going to be, and they can tell you when your delivery is going to arrive, and it's amazing. And obviously there's another company that's more common, which I think in the US is called Lyft. You can use this to track people, vehicles and devices. Geotagging photographs. So when you take a photo, it can actually determine where you are and tag them. Satellite navigation systems. Geocaching, I don't know if you've ever done that. It's like a game, and the satellite can basically pinpoint exactly where you are. And what you do is you find this little box, and it's what someone's put there because it's the exact satellite pinpoint, the longitude and latitude, and then you can put your name down to say that you've been there. It's usually at historical places. So, for example, there was one that was actually near me when I lived in East London, was called Barking Abbey, and it was this church in Barking. It was an abbey in Barking, and I think Captain Cook got married there. So there was a geocaching thing there, and I put my name down. There was people from all over the world that have been there. So some people actually do say go and visit somewhere, like they might go and visit London. They think, oh, okay, where can I go geocaching and try to find some interesting places? And also you can use cycling routes on GPS as well. Now, continuing, GPS can provide real-time locations and live maps, so drivers can focus on their driving with the occasional glances at their progress, like how far away they are, if there's any oncoming traffic, and also if there's any speed limits in that area and speed cameras. If the driver misses the turn, then what will happen is the sat-nav knows exactly where you are, and it will reroute and direct you back in the right place to go back, and provide the driver with an alternative route. If you're using a sat-nav on a mobile device, the maps will update automatically. Standalone devices such as sat-navs, like for example TomTom, will only work once it's in your car and it's plugged in, okay? And it has to be updated by the user when in their car. And I remember, I think you had to pay for it. I don't know if you have to anymore, but the great thing about, you know, Google Maps on your phone that you can just use instead, you can just get a holder for your car, is that they update automatically. Now, they're not perfect, okay? They're far from it sometimes. There are some concerns, like for example, when a driver's putting in a destination while driving. I've known myself for sat-navs to be incorrect. And also, I've used the sat-nav before and it has taken me on a longer route. So no, they're not perfect. Also, there are problems using them in some places as well. Sometimes the satellite signals are not very fast. I've used it before where I've actually missed a turning because it's not told me to turn, and then it's caught up and it's told me that I've gone the wrong route and constantly rerouted. So a line of sight required. Like, for example, if you're going through a tunnel or under a bridge, then basically the sat-nav can be blocked. Tall buildings in city centres can block GPS systems. If you go to London, I've used my sat-nav in the middle of London and it's awful. And I've used Google Maps in the middle of London as well, and it's not good. Now, in London, as you know, we've got the traditional black taxis. Now, they do have sat-navs on them, but a majority of I think of the taxi drivers don't really use them. Now, to become a black taxi driver in London, you have to learn every single street, and you have to learn every point of interest, and obviously important buildings as well. Okay, so taxi drivers in London take a very long time to train to become taxi drivers. And as I says, they have to memorize. There are certain routes that they go on and they have to memorize every single route. Okay, I remember my dad did it. My dad was on it, I think, for about 2 or 3 years, and then he just decided it wasn't for him anymore. It was an awful lot of stress, you know, a long time, a full-time job, because it is an awful lot of studying and it does take up an awful lot of your life. But a lot of people do it still, and you know, and it's an excellent thing to do. There has to be good atmospheric conditions as well. Signal problems can occur in snow or thick fog, which obviously isn't a problem here in Gran Canaria. Right, so what you're going to complete now is the satellite communications worksheet. My students, this is available on Google Classrooms, or if you're watching from another school, welcome. And this sheet is available as a link underneath this video. Very best of luck to you.